Let me start with a truth that most people are afraid to say out loud: being ambitious doesn't automatically make you disciplined. You can dream big and still struggle to move. You can see a powerful future for yourself and yet wake up every day feeling heavy, distracted, and unmotivated. That doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean you lack potential. It means you're human. And today, I want to talk to the version of you that wants more from life, but keeps delaying the work it takes to get there. Ambition is loud in the mind. It paints pictures of success, respect, freedom, and purpose. You imagine yourself winning, leading, creating, and becoming someone others look up to. But laziness is quiet and comfortable. It whispers, "You can do it tomorrow. You deserve a break. One more scroll won't hurt." The danger is not laziness itself. The danger is when ambition and laziness live in the same body, fighting for control. That inner conflict drains your energy more than hard work ever will. Here's the reality: lazy people don't feel pain today, they feel it later. Disciplined people feel pain today, but they live in freedom tomorrow. When you avoid the work, you're not avoiding effort, you're postponing growth. And growth has a deadline. Time doesn't wait for motivation to show up. Life keeps moving whether you're ready or not. You don't need to suddenly become obsessed with hustle. You don't need to wake up at 4 a.m. or work 18 hours a day. What you need is honesty. Ask yourself this: am I tired, or am I avoiding discomfort? Because real ambition is not proven by what you want, it's proven by what you're willing to do when you don't feel like doing anything at all. Most people wait for motivation to arrive before they act. That's backwards. Action creates motivation. Progress creates energy. Even the smallest step forward breaks the spell of laziness. When you move, your mind follows. When you stay still, your doubts grow louder. Stop trying to feel ready. Ready is a feeling that comes after you start, not before. Understand this deeply: your future doesn't care how ambitious you feel today. It only responds to what you repeatedly do. Dreams without discipline become frustration. Talent without effort becomes regret. And ambition without action slowly turns into self-hate, because deep down you know you are capable of more. So if you are ambitious but lazy, don't hate yourself. Wake yourself up. Start building trust with yourself again. Keep the promises you make in private. Do the work when nobody is watching. Replace comfort with commitment, excuses with execution, and wishing with working. You don't need a new life. You need a new standard. Ambition alone is not power, action is, and this is where most people misunderstand their own potential. They believe that because they dream big, think big, and want more, they are already on the path to success. But ambition without action is like a car with a powerful engine and no fuel. It looks impressive, but it never moves. The world does not reward intentions, it rewards execution. You can want greatness with every fiber of your being, but if your days are not aligned with your dreams, your ambition becomes nothing more than mental entertainment. Here's the uncomfortable truth: wanting more is easy. Everyone wants success, respect, freedom, and a better life. What separates the few from the many is not desire, it's behavior. Action is the language ambition must speak to be taken seriously. Without action, ambition turns into frustration, then into self-doubt, and eventually into regret. You don't lose confidence overnight. You lose it every time you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow and don't. Ambition feels powerful because it gives you hope. It makes you feel alive. But action is what gives ambition credibility. Action is what turns imagination into reality. The moment you take responsibility for your daily choices, your ambition stops being emotional and starts becoming practical. And practicality is where real success is built. Dreams don't change lives, disciplined routines do. Many people confuse being busy with taking action. Scrolling, planning, talking, watching motivational videos, and waiting for the perfect moment feels productive, but it's not progress. Real action is uncomfortable. It requires focus when you'd rather be distracted. It demands effort when comfort is calling your name. That discomfort is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's proof that you're finally doing something that matters. Here's a hook you need to hear clearly. Your ambition is useless without proof. Proof is shown in your calendar, your habits, and your consistency. Not in what you say, but in what you repeat. 1 hour of focused action beats 10 hours of wishful thinking. One completed task beats 1,000 unfinished plans. The world respects results, not potential. Action doesn't mean massive steps every day. It means intentional steps every day. Small actions compound into massive outcomes when done consistently. The mistake ambitious people make is waiting for motivation to feel strong before they act. But motivation is unreliable. Discipline is dependable. Discipline shows up even when ambition feels tired. And when discipline leads, ambition follows with clarity and confidence. Another hard reality is this: ambition without action slowly becomes self-sabotage. Deep down, you know what you're capable of. When your actions don't match that knowledge, your mind turns against you. You start questioning yourself, your worth, and your abilities. That inner conflict creates anxiety and guilt, not because you lack talent, but because you're not using it. Action heals that conflict. Progress restores self-respect. The moment you start acting, even imperfectly, something shifts inside you. Your mind becomes sharper. Your confidence strengthens. Your excuses lose power. Action gives you feedback, direction, and momentum. You stop fantasizing about success and start building it. That's when ambition becomes dangerous in the best way possible. Understand this deeply: success is not built on big emotional bursts of ambition. It's built on boring, repetitive, disciplined action. The people you admire didn't feel motivated every day. They moved anyway. They acted anyway. They showed up when it was inconvenient. That's why their ambition paid off. If you want your ambition to mean something, give it structure. Give it discipline. Give it daily action. Because ambition without action is just noise in your head. But ambition backed by action becomes a force that reshapes your life. Laziness is not a lack of ability. It is a habit of choosing comfort over growth. And that distinction changes everything. When people label themselves as lazy, they unknowingly give themselves an excuse, as if laziness is a permanent trait rather than a repeated decision. In reality, most people who call themselves lazy are highly capable, intelligent, and ambitious. What holds them back is not weakness, but the comfort they've trained themselves to protect at all costs. Comfort is seductive because it feels safe. It asks nothing from you except that you stay where you are. Growth, on the other hand, demands energy, focus, and discomfort. The brain naturally prefers comfort because it conserves energy. So every time you choose ease over effort, you are not failing, you are reinforcing a habit. And habits, not personalities, shape your future. Here's the hook most people need to hear: you are not lazy, you are just loyal to your comfort zone. And loyalty to comfort has a price. It slowly shrinks your tolerance for effort. What once felt manageable begins to feel overwhelming. Simple tasks start to feel heavy. Not because they are hard, but because your discipline muscle has not been exercised. Laziness grows when effort is avoided repeatedly. Each time you delay action, your mind learns that avoidance is acceptable. Over time, that avoidance becomes automatic. You don't consciously choose comfort anymore, you default to it. This is why willpower alone rarely works. You can't rely on motivation to break a habit that was built through repetition. You must replace it with a new pattern of behavior. Choosing growth does not require massive changes. It requires intentional discomfort. Discomfort is not punishment, it is training. Just like muscles grow by resistance, discipline grows when you do what is slightly uncomfortable on a consistent basis. The smallest disciplined action begins to weaken laziness because it challenges the comfort-first mindset. Another truth that needs to be confronted is that laziness is often disguised as exhaustion or lack of clarity. But many people are not tired from doing too much, they are tired from doing too little of what actually matters. Mental fatigue comes from procrastination, not productivity. When important tasks are delayed, they linger in the mind, draining energy and focus throughout the day. Here's a powerful hook: comfort feels good now, but it makes life harder later. Growth feels hard now, but it makes life easier later. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you're not avoiding pain, you're rescheduling it. And when that pain comes back, it comes with interest in the form of regret, missed opportunities, and self-doubt. Breaking the habit of laziness starts with awareness. You must catch yourself in the moment you're about to choose comfort and ask a better question. Not, do I feel like doing this? But, what kind of person am I becoming by skipping this? That question shifts the focus from temporary feelings to long-term identity. And identity is far more powerful than motivation. When you consistently choose growth, something important happens internally. Your self-respect increases. You begin to trust yourself again. You stop negotiating with your responsibilities and start honoring them. Laziness loses its grip not because you forced yourself, but because you changed what you value more: short-term comfort or long-term pride. The most dangerous thing about laziness is not lost productivity, it's lost belief. Every skipped effort sends a quiet message to your mind that you cannot be relied on. Over time, that message becomes your self-image. But the reverse is also true. Every time you choose growth over comfort, you rebuild belief. You prove to yourself that discipline is not about perfection, it's about choice. Laziness is not who you are. It's what you've practiced. And anything practiced can be replaced. The moment you start choosing growth, Even in small ways, laziness begins to weaken. Not because you became someone new, but because you returned to who you were always capable of being. Stop waiting to feel motivated, because motivation is not a reliable starting point. It is a reaction to movement. Most people believe they must feel inspired before they act, but this belief keeps them trapped in inaction. Motivation is emotional, and emotions change daily. If your progress depends on how you feel, your results will always be inconsistent. Discipline begins where motivation ends, and that is where real momentum is created. Here's the hook most people need to hear clearly: if you wait for motivation, you give your future permission to stall. Motivation shows up after you start, not before. Action is the spark. Movement sends a signal to the brain that progress is happening, and that signal creates energy, focus, and confidence. Without action, the mind stays in resistance mode, convincing you to delay, doubt, and distract yourself. The reason motivation feels absent is often because the task feels overwhelming. When something feels too big, the brain looks for escape. Scrolling, overthinking, planning, and procrastinating become coping mechanisms. But once you break the task into a small, manageable action and begin, the mental pressure decreases. Starting is not about strength, it's about strategy. One small move is enough to shift your mental state. Many people confuse motivation with readiness. They think once they feel ready, things will be easier. But readiness is built through repetition, not emotion. You become ready by doing, not by waiting. Every time you act without motivation, you train your brain to respect discipline over comfort. That training creates resilience, and resilience creates consistency. Here's another hook. The hardest part of any task is the first 5 minutes. After that, resistance weakens, momentum takes over. Once you are in motion, the brain adapts, focus improves, doubt fades, energy increases. The discomfort you feared turns out to be smaller than the regret you were avoiding. But you only discover this after you begin. Discipline is often misunderstood as force or punishment. In reality, discipline is self-leadership. It is choosing long-term alignment over short-term relief. When you act without motivation, you prove to yourself that your actions are not controlled by your moods. That independence is powerful. It builds confidence not through achievement, but through self-mastery. Another truth most people avoid is this: motivation is unreliable because it depends on external factors. Praise, results, excitement, and validation all influence it. Discipline, however, is internal. It does not need permission. It does not wait for the perfect mood or moment. It operates on commitment. That's why disciplined people make progress even in chaos, fatigue, and uncertainty. Here's a reality check that hits hard: your goals don't care how unmotivated you feel. Time doesn't pause because you're tired, confused, or uninspired. Every day you wait for motivation is a day your potential stays unused. But every day you act without it, you build a version of yourself that can be trusted under pressure. Action without motivation builds momentum, and momentum simplifies effort. What once felt heavy becomes routine. What once felt impossible becomes normal. That is the power of consistency. It removes the emotional debate from your day. You stop asking yourself whether you feel like doing the work and start doing it because it's who you are. When you understand this, your entire approach changes. You stop chasing motivation and start creating systems. You focus on showing up, not feeling good. And as a result, motivation begins to appear more often, not as a requirement, but as a reward for movement. Small actions done consistently will defeat laziness faster than big plans that never start. And this is where real progress is quietly built. Most people fall in love with the idea of transformation but resist the reality of daily effort. They create grand plans, set unrealistic goals, and wait for the perfect conditions to begin. But perfection is a delay tactic, and big plans without action are just sophisticated excuses. Here's a hook that shifts perspective instantly: consistency beats intensity every single time. One focused step repeated daily will outperform bursts of motivation that disappear after a few days. Laziness survives on overwhelm. When a goal feels too large, the mind looks for comfort. Small actions disarm that resistance because they feel achievable. They don't threaten your energy or demand perfection. They simply ask you to begin. The problem with big plans is not ambition, it's expectation. When the plan is massive, missing a single day feels like failure. That feeling discourages continuation. Small actions remove that pressure. They allow progress to feel natural rather than forced. And when progress feels natural, it becomes sustainable. Another powerful hook: you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your habits. Habits are built through repetition, not excitement. A small daily action, even when imperfect, creates a pattern, and patterns shape identity. Over time, you stop seeing yourself as someone who tries and start seeing yourself as someone who shows up. Laziness weakens when effort becomes familiar. The brain resists what is unfamiliar and embraces what is repeated. By keeping actions small, you lower mental resistance. You make discipline easier to access. This is why people who succeed long-term rarely rely on motivation. They rely on routines that feel almost too simple to fail. Many people underestimate small actions because they don't produce immediate results. But progress is often invisible before it becomes undeniable. Just like compound interest, small efforts accumulate quietly. Then one day the results seem sudden. That's not luck. That's consistency finally revealing itself. Here's a hard truth: most people avoid big plans, protect laziness when they are never executed. They make you feel productive without requiring effort. Writing goals, talking about dreams, and visualizing success can feel good, but they don't replace work. Small actions force honesty. They expose whether you're serious or just hopeful. Consistency also builds trust with yourself. Every time you complete a small task, you reinforce the belief that you are capable of follow through. That belief is powerful. Confidence is not built by thinking positively. It's built by keeping promises, even tiny ones. When you trust yourself, laziness loses its excuse. Small actions also remove the fear of failure. When the task is small, failure feels manageable. You're more willing to try. That willingness keeps momentum alive. Momentum then reduces effort. What once required willpower becomes automatic. And when effort becomes automatic, discipline stops feeling like discipline. Another hook that matters deep lies: success is rarely about doing more. It's about doing less, better, and consistently. Small actions allow focus. They prevent burnout. They keep you engaged without exhausting you. Over time, these actions stack, creating results that big plans alone could never achieve. When you commit to small daily progress, you stop negotiating with laziness. There's nothing to debate. The action is too simple to resist. And in that simplicity lies power. Because while others wait for the perfect moment to execute their grand plans, you're quietly building momentum, one small action at a time. Every excuse you accept today becomes a regret you carry tomorrow, and this truth is far more expensive than most people realize. Excuses feel harmless in the moment. They sound reasonable, logical, even responsible. You tell yourself you're tired, you're busy, the timing isn't right, or you'll do it when things slow down. But excuses don't disappear after they serve their purpose. They stay stored in your memory, and one day they return as regret, asking why you didn't act when you had the chance. Here's the hook that hits hard: excuses don't protect you, they betray you. They give short-term relief while silently stealing long-term progress. Every time you accept an excuse, you teach your mind that comfort has more authority than your goals. Over time, that lesson becomes your default response to challenge. You stop pushing, not because you can't, but because you've trained yourself not to. Most excuses are not based on reality, they are based on emotion. Feelings like fear, doubt, insecurity, or discomfort disguise themselves as logic. You say you need more time, but what you really need is courage. You say you need more information, but what you really need is commitment. Excuses are rarely about circumstances, they are about avoidance. Another hook you need to hear clearly: future regret is built one excuse at a time. No one wakes up one day full of regret without a history of small delays and rationalizations. Regret is not loud at first, it grows quietly. It forms when you repeatedly choose what's easy over what's necessary. And by the time it becomes obvious, the opportunity you needed is often gone. Excuses also damage self-trust. Every time you talk yourself out of action, your mind records it. You start seeing yourself as someone who quits, delays, or negotiates with responsibility. That self-image becomes heavy. It drains confidence. You begin doubting your own word even when you want to change. Regret doesn't come from failure alone. It comes from knowing you didn't try when you could have. Here's a powerful hook: excuses age badly. What sounds reasonable today will sound weak tomorrow. When time passes, the emotions that justified your excuse fade, but the consequences remain. You won't remember how tired you were. You'll remember that you didn't act. You won't remember how busy you felt. You'll remember what you didn't become. Many people believe avoiding discomfort saves them from pain. In reality, it only delays it. Discomfort chosen today is temporary. Regret postponed to tomorrow is permanent. The pain of discipline has an end. The pain of regret does not. It revisits you in quiet moments when you reflect on what could have been different. Excuses also create a dangerous illusion of control. You feel in charge because you made a choice, but that choice slowly hands control over to fear and habit. Over time, excuses become automatic. You don't even question them. You accept them without challenge. And that's when growth stops completely, not because you failed, but because you stop demanding more from yourself. Another hook worth sitting with: your standards are revealed by the excuses you tolerate. High standards leave little room for justification. They don't mean perfection. They mean accountability. When you raise your standards, excuses lose their power. You stop asking what's comfortable and start asking what's required. The moment you reject an excuse, even a small one, something shifts internally. You reclaim authority over your actions. You feel stronger, not because the task was easy, but because you didn't escape it. That strength compounds. One resisted excuse builds momentum. One honest action rebuilds self-respect. Regret is not punishment from life. It is feedback from your potential. It exists to remind you of what was possible. And the only way to silence future regret is to confront present excuses. Not aggressively, but consistently. Because every excuse you refuse today is a version of regret you'll never have to carry tomorrow. The moment you keep a promise to yourself, your confidence grows, because self-trust is not built through words, it is built through evidence. Most people search for confidence outside themselves, hoping achievement, approval, or recognition will finally make them believe in who they are. But real confidence begins much earlier, in private moments where no one is watching, when you either honor your word or quietly break it. Here's the hook that changes how you see yourself. Every promise you break to yourself weakens your identity, and every promise you keep strengthens it. Self-trust is the foundation of unstoppable ambition, because ambition without self-trust collapses under pressure. When you don't trust yourself, you hesitate, you overthink, you doubt your ability to follow through. But when you trust yourself, action feels natural, not forced. Many people don't realize that confidence is not a personality trait, it's a byproduct of consistency. You don't wake up one day feeling confident for no reason. You earn it by doing what you said you would do, especially when it's inconvenient. Each kept promise becomes proof. And proof is what the mind believes, not motivation speeches or positive affirmations. Here's another hook worth remembering: your mind is always watching your behavior. It records patterns. When you repeatedly delay, quit, or make excuses, your mind learns that your words don't carry weight. That's why self-doubt grows. Not because you're incapable, but because you've trained yourself not to be reliable. The good news is that reliability can be rebuilt, one promise at a time. Self-trust doesn't require big commitments. In fact, it grows faster with small, specific promises. Promising yourself to wake up earlier, complete one task, or stay consistent for a short period creates a win you can repeat. These wins compound. And with each repetition, your confidence becomes quieter but stronger. You stop needing external validation because you've proven something to yourself. A powerful hook to internalize is this: confidence is not loud, it's calm. It comes from knowing you'll show up whether you feel like it or not. That calm confidence is what separates those who hesitate from those who execute. When pressure appears, people with self-trust don't panic. They act because action is familiar territory. Breaking promises to yourself also creates internal conflict. Deep down, you know what you said you'd do. When you don't do it, there's friction. That friction shows up as guilt, anxiety, and self-criticism. Over time, this internal noise becomes exhausting. Keeping promises eliminates that noise. It creates alignment between who you say you are and how you live. Another hook that matters deeply: discipline is a form of self-respect. When you honor your commitments, you send a message to yourself that your goals matter. That message builds pride. Not ego-driven pride, but quiet self-respect. And self-respect fuels ambition in a healthy way. It makes you want to do more, not out of pressure, but out of belief. Self-trust also removes the need to negotiate with yourself. When you trust your word, there's no debate. You don't waste energy deciding whether to act. You act because you decided earlier. That clarity saves mental energy and turns discipline into routine. And routines are what create long-term success. Here's the reality most people overlook: unstoppable ambition is not built on intensity, it's built on reliability. It's built on showing up when motivation fades and excuses feel convincing. Every kept promise becomes a brick, and brick by brick, you build an unshakable version of yourself. When you start keeping promises to yourself, even the smallest ones, you change your internal reputation. You become someone you can depend on. And once you have that, ambition stops feeling heavy. It starts feeling inevitable. Let me leave you with this. One day, you will look back at this season of your life, and you'll either be proud that you pushed through the resistance, or disappointed that you let comfort steal your potential. The choice is made in moments like this. Not tomorrow, not next week, or now. Get up, take responsibility, and move. Because ambition without action is just a dream, but ambition with discipline changes everything.